Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and I'm going to talk about the C-17 accident that occurred up very near Elmendorf Air Force Base back in July 28th of 2010. Now, I've often seen it referenced where they compare this accident to the B-52 crash at Fairchild on June 24th of 1994. Now, there are a lot of similarities. In fact, that both of these were practicing for an air show that was to occur very soon, and both of these involved a degree of overconfidence. But I think there are some other interesting differences. Now, as I mentioned, I got a chance to fly the C-17 back in May of 1998, got to do a flight evaluation on it, and it's a very interesting aircraft. It's an extremely capable aircraft. It weighs 585,000 pounds, has four Pratt & Whitney engines that generate 40,440, I think, pounds of thrust each. He has a very interesting blown flap direct lift system, and it provides a very interesting capability of hauling oversized cargo in unimproved airfields. Now, let's talk about the accident sequence. Now, there's an old adage in flight tests that you do not deviate from the test card. That's the easy way to end up dying, and I'm sure it's the same thing for an air show. You do not deviate from the planned air show, and there were a lot of deviations here, which is strange because this is more than just overconfidence. The pilot should have stayed with the planned air show performance. The target climb out speed was 133 knots, and they never exceeded 107 knots. And passing 800 feet AGL, they initiated the first turn in the segment of the 206 degree turn reversals. They were supposed to go up to 1,500 feet, and they essentially leveled off at 852 feet. And they had a procedure where the co-pilot would initiate flap retraction with no challenge in response. Okay, this is not how things are typically done, because you want the pilot to be in the loop. You start retracting things, and you have a little bit of miscommunication, and it's not going to go well. They started the initial flap retraction at 151 knots. The minimum speed was 150, so that's fine. They started the slat retraction at 188 knots, and the minimum's 193. Now, often if you're accelerating, that's not a bad deal, because you're going to get, by the time it retracts, you're going to get that. But 5 seconds into the turn, they got the stall warning. And the pilot was very aggressive. He put in a lot of full controls. And now at 62 seconds into the mishap sortie, they entered a full stall. The aircraft was not supposed to exceed 60 degrees of bank in the maneuvering. However, during the stall condition, the aircraft is going out of control at this point, being in a stall. He doesn't have aileron roll effectiveness there. They hit 82 degrees of bank, and they began essentially a 9,000 foot per minute rate of descent. And 5 seconds before impact, the slats were fully attracted. 2 seconds before he started to roll out the aircraft, but there was really nothing that could be done at that point. They impacted wooded terrain northwest of the airfield, 63.6 degrees right bank, 16.9 degrees nose low, airspeed of 184 knots. And of course, all crew members died, and the aircraft was destroyed. Now let's take a look at the video here, and we'll talk about a few things afterwards. So how did this accident develop? What caused it? Now, a lot of people will compare this to the Fairchild accident with the B-52. Now, Colonel Holland had a long history, the commander of the B-52 that crashed at Fairchild. He had a long history of being a hot dog. People didn't want to fly with him. He had done a lot of unsafe things, and he was not brought to task, and that is a deficiency of supervision. I think that's fairly clear, but why an individual like that was allowed to continue flying is quite a bit of mystery. Now, in this case, of course, they say, well, it's the same issue. It's a lack of supervision. Yeah, if somebody under you screws up, you always blame the supervisors, right? Okay, well, but this was a totally different situation with the pilot. There were 3 pilots on board. All of them were instructor pilots, all of them well experienced and qualified in the aircraft. And the Major Freeholtz, who was the pilot flying, was well respected. He was considered to be extremely precise and knowledgeable aviator. But well, what happened here? Well, during simulator training, now simulators are a lot better now than they used to be. But a lot of times, the simulator and the airplane, yeah, you got to learn to fly the simulator. The airplane doesn't fly the same way the simulator does. In fact, digressing here, V1 cuts in the aircraft, which I've done in virtually all the commercial transport aircraft, are much easier in the simulator, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think they're purposely made harder in the simulator to truly test you when you really lose an engine. It's kind of a piece of cake. But anyway, I digress. But he considered the pilot, Major Freeholtz, considered the stall warning an anomaly. All right. Well, my thought also is he may have been used to flying in Buffett and considered that not a unusual situation. But this is an aircraft that, well, yes, you do fly in Buffett, but you don't fly in aerodynamic Buffett as such, although it is a degree in aerodynamic Buffett. On final, if you're flying a steep approach, you're in the powered lift function, the spoilers are up partially, you're blowing air through the flaps, there's a lot of rumbling, a lot of noise, a lot of buffeting off the spoilers, so there is a buffeting on final, and you maybe get used to that and think, well, that's fine, but when you're clean, that's kind of a different type of buffeting. And stall warning, he kind of made himself into a test pilot on this, was overconfident in his ability, and ignored warnings he shouldn't ignore. And the stall warning was a warning he should not ignore, and obviously he did, to his detriment, and everybody else involved lost all 4 people, and also a very expensive and capable aircraft. So part of the situation that developed here, in my opinion, is the same thing as they got into on the Challenger accident, and this was a normalization of deviation. You get away with something for long enough, and you think, hey, that's fine. Now, I have a Corvette. I've had it for 6 years now, and I've never gotten a speeding ticket. In fact, the only speeding ticket I got was in 1973 when, due to the Arab oil embargo, I'm sure all you young people remember this, due to the Arab oil embargo, they lowered the national speed limit from 70 miles per hour to 55, and I didn't. Okay, so that's when I got a speeding ticket. But I've got this Corvette, and Your Honor, I never exceed the speed limit. Of course, I would never do that. But, just between you and me, yeah, sometimes I drive a little fast. I've got a radar detector, and it's kept me out of trouble a little bit. But, there's probably a time I'm going to get a speeding ticket. But what I'm doing is I am normalizing my deviation and its acceptable behavior. But, I probably someday will pay for that. But in this case, the normalization of deviation led these pilots into a situation where they were operating on just a fine edge of the aircraft performance. They were dedicated to put on a good show. I mean, that's part of it too. Why they got so far off of the profile. I mean, the altitude was half of what they're going for. Why somebody didn't say, hey, knock it off. You're out of your parameters. This isn't the way we're doing the air show. But they let him continue because, he was an experienced pilot. He had gotten away with it before. But, he was slow. you know, somebody should have said something. Of course, that's the old thing at the end. Somebody should have said something. But why he felt he could do this? Okay, normalization of deviation. He got away with it. He continued to get away with it. He wanted to put on a good air show. He was focused, and unfortunately, it led to a situation that developed into a fatal accident and loss of a very valuable, irreplaceable aircraft. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.